Where is father?
My daughter's grating voice echoed through the marble halls of our grand mansion. As she walked up to the fancy doors that led to the library, where I was reading a musty old book, her impatient steps echoed. I didn't want to stop reading the book, but she kept asking me questions, so I sighed, put the book down on the mahogany desk, and turned to her. As she ran through the open doors, her determined eyes met mine, looking for the answer she so desperately wanted. There was a feeling of unease in the room because we both knew that father had left to do something dangerous and might never come back to our luxurious home. At that moment, our hearts were heavy with longing for his safe return, and our minds were ready for the possibility that his absence might haunt us forever. "He's not here anymore," I said incoherently as I turned my back on her. The room smelled like she was joking about being innocent.
Oh, so he's not?
Her face turned into a smirk.
You think I don't notice how quiet it is, how the maids are whispering, and how obvious it is that he isn't laughing?
I made a fist, and the diamond-studded ring bit into my skin. She went on,
I'll go look for him. I can't just leave him to wallow in his regrets and filth.
When everyone stopped talking, she looked around, and with a worried face as she explained her plan, her eyes were full of determination. "Despite everything that's happened, he's still a father to me. We've been through a lot together, and he needs help more than ever right now." She told me more about her thoughts on the matter by saying,
Think about how lost and alone he must feel right now. Doesn't he deserve a chance to make up for his mistakes and change his life?
She took a deep breath and said in a firm voice,
I can't sit back and let him suffer. I leave first thing in the morning.
she said with a firm nod.
Please be willing to help me if I ask.
Her cold, uncaring words made my heart shrink. Even though my eyes filled with tears, I wouldn't let her win. I swallowed the lump in my throat and got up the courage to look back at her in a defiant way, refusing to let her see how weak I was. With my fists clenched and my heart racing, I forced a tight smile and slowly walked away, promising to keep my head held high. Even though what she said hurt, I wasn't going to let it break me. I knew that one day I would rise above it all, and her taunts would be nothing more than a faint echo of a painful past. She then walked away, her heels echoing her arrogant dismissal of, "Mothers never make mistakes." I had loved and cared for her so much, but she had never known what it meant to betray someone. When I hadn't heard anything about my daughter for 2 weeks, I couldn't hold back the pain in my heart any longer. I was led to the dark office that was my husband's safe place after we broke up. The air smelled musty, like old papers. I opened the drawer and there they were, hundreds of old, crumpled letters, the secrets of a man who used to love me, the tragedy of a man who tried to hide the fact that he was poor until the day he disappeared. Even though I was sad, letting my tears flow freely gave me a strange pleasure. I sobbed, cried because of all the anger I felt inside. Notices of foreclosure and bills of debt were all neatly filed and put away. He had left, taking his own flaws with him, leaving me in charge of the empire. All of the inheritances, loans, and notices of going out of business were carefully written down and hidden. His departure, which was full of his own troubles, gave me the power. With the weight of his mistakes firmly tattooed on my shoulders, the empire felt more like a warden's curse than an heir's privilege. This legacy, which was full of red numbers and legal jargon, stood on shaky ground, just waiting for the slightest shake to bring it down. His regrets could be heard through the quiet of the many rooms, each of which was full of the luxuries of a life paid for by growing deficits. As you walked through the long hallways, you could smell the smell of past extravagance, which was slowly being replaced by the smell of uncertain money. Once full of loud laughter and clinking glasses, the halls were now empty, and their emptiness was a clear sign that a storm was coming. Taking the throne of a failing empire had never been on my list of things to do in the future, but there I was, staring at a frightening reality I couldn't escape. He had left, carrying the weight of his own mistakes, and in doing so, he had left me a maze of incompetence. It was time to face the scrutiny of the loan sharks and dance the tangled tango with the banks, all while keeping the wolves of bankruptcy at bay. My daughter didn't know all of this, of course. She thinks her dad has a lot of money. At least his life showed that he was like that. In fact, the grand house she grew up in, the fancy parties her parents often threw, and the steady stream of stylish clothes and expensive gadgets she got, showed that she came from a wealthy family. A picture that her father made with great care and was full of glittering lies. The fact that they took expensive vacations every year just added to this lie. What her innocent eyes didn't see was that behind the extravagant facade was a crushing debt that kept getting worse. She didn't understand how her dad could spend sleepless nights worrying about how to keep up the act while sinking deeper into a financial quagmire. His real life was very different from the extravagant persona he put out there. I didn't know where my daughter was until she called me to tell me she had finally met her dad. On the phone, she asked,
How are you?
"How am I?"
I'm not in a mood for argument. I called to tell you that I am not going to come back to you, Mom. I've found my dad.
Let me guess. It's because of your dad's money, right?
Sure, he can look after me.
I hope for the best for you out of goodwill and optimism. May good fortune and luck be with you every step of the way as you go through life. Let every problem you face become an opportunity, and every setback a step on the way to success. May each new day bring you inspiration and happiness, making your dreams come true in a wonderful way. As you step into the unknown, may each moment bring you awe-inspiring experiences and vivid memories that make your world a happy and peaceful place. As you take the center stage in life's grand theater, I wish you the best. May all of your efforts be successful, and may the applause never stop. To put it simply, the stars are waiting for you to shine, and I know you will. From the bottom of my heart, I send you these genuine acts of kindness and hope for the best for you. After some time had passed, her return was not a sign of victory. It was a night with no sounds at all that changed our lives. She looked lost, and the harshness of life left her eyes wide-eyed.
Mother,
She said in a weak voice.
he is not wealthy.
I was shocked by what she said, but I swallowed my anger and asked her quietly, "Why do you say that?" She was quiet for what seemed like a very long time.
His bank letters. I didn't know you were keeping us afloat for all these years.
All of a sudden, our big house felt stuffy. It didn't feel as grand as it used to, and I found peace in its place. We were just a mother and a daughter trying to find each other again. We went on a journey of rediscovery by accident, as if wrapped in a blanket of still silence. I heard a soft plea for peace in the echoes of the grand halls, which used to be full of hollow laughter and merrymaking. It sounded like a mother's whispered lullaby being carried over by the soft wind. The priceless art on the walls, which had often been a silent witness to our struggles, turned into a canvas of heartfelt words all at once. Even though the house didn't change physically, it changed spiritually, and we changed along with it. We didn't have to carry the weight of our titles anymore. We were just a caring mother and a longing daughter. We found happiness in the simple things and unexpected fun in the everyday things. Not only did we learn about each other, but we also learned about ourselves. I found pieces of ourselves etched into the walls of every room, from the dining hall to the fancy drawing room. It was a silent reminder of a past we were trying to figure out. In such strange times, a mother and daughter found comfort and company in the silences they shared and the grandeur that had been left behind. In its quietness, the big house went from being scary to being friendly, and its confusing rooms helped us find each other. So our grand home, which was once a sign of our status and pride, became a place where we could rediscover each other and talk in silence. It was still grand, not because of its size, but because it was a place where our relationship could grow and change. It seemed to have found its true purpose when it let go of its pompous grandeur, just like a mother and a daughter did. We found each other in the heart of being real, where there was no pretense. In doing so, we also found ourselves. Her eyes got softer as she said,
You went through a lot by yourself. How could I have been so rude?
As I whispered back to her, my eyes filled with tears. No, you weren't rude. You were just a person like me. We all make mistakes. That's just how life is. I gently held her, and our silence filled the room with unspoken apologies and quiet acceptance. As we both talked about their past mistakes, time seemed to stop for a moment.
This conversation had a sense of peace that comes with a problem being solved. When I looked at her, I could tell that she had grown and been hurt by life, but here they stood, stronger than ever and able to deal with problems. We have been through so much on our own, she repeated.
And we're better for it.
We can only learn from what has happened and move on, I told her in a soft voice. Her eyes met mine with a burst of warmth. They were now full of respect and admiration for me. After they apologized and said they were sorry, they made a bright promise to get better, try to understand each other, and face any problems that came their way together. Up until now, I had been going through the hard journey by myself. No longer will I have to carry my problems by myself. Our hearts silently promised each other love and understanding, shared strength, and a new sense of unity. The quiet confession hung in the air, which was a big change from her previous boastful and cocky words. She had seen the world, and it had been hard, mean, and a cruel teacher. Its inability to forgive had taken away any innocence she had and given her new wisdom. But she had learned the truth, which is that life is a never-ending battlefield where only those who can change can survive. Then I realized that the most important thing I could give her wasn't money or the empire we'd built together. It was a hard lesson for her to learn, but she finally realized that true strength doesn't come from having things, but from having a strong spirit and being able to grow from hard times. Her past had made her more humble, and as I watched her stand with her weaknesses on display, I hoped she would keep this newfound humility with her for the rest of her life. This humility would make her a better leader and give her the inner peace she had been looking for a long time. In the end, the bad things that happened in our lives brought us closer together more than any happiness could have. As I held my remorseful daughter in my arms that night, my sadness seemed to lessen, and begrudging hope took its place. In fact, our trials are not meant to break us. Instead, they are meant to shape us, much like how fire shapes steel. When the tears that had freed us from our shared sadness finally stopped, I looked into her teary blue eyes and saw the cosmic meaning of our pain. We started to feel less regret, and even though our hearts were still hurt, they started to heal. In our darkest times, compassion and mutual understanding grew. This marked the beginning of a time when trust and family ties were rebuilt. The sound of our laughter and the real laughter we shared in the days that followed seemed even sweeter because we knew our relationship had been through a storm. So even though the road ahead of us was still unclear, we moved forward with a strong sense of hope that we had developed after our shared tragedy. Assume, if you would, that you stood in my shoes, adopting the role of a mother as I once did. A maternal figure faced with betrayal and deceit emanating not from a stranger, but from your own offspring, the fruit of your labor and love. Underneath the strain of this troublesome circumstance, imagine confronting the excruciating decision of whether or not to forgive your daughter and welcome her back into your life, back into your heart, after she perpetrated such a colossal lie. Ask yourself, would you have afforded her your mercy and understanding, or would you have allowed the weight of her terrible deceit to fracture your maternal bond indefinitely? This decision, as agonizing as it was, had to be made, because that was the reality I was confronted with.